Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the backside of Churchill Downs on Derby Day. We're going to be celebrating our 149th consecutive running of the Derby. And of course, yesterday was Oaks Day. Had a tremendous day. Standing here beside this Ford car dressed in pink because yesterday was Breast Cancer Awareness Day. I don't know if I hope you folks watched it, seeing the breast cancer survivors parade around the turf course. It's a pretty cool moment. Everybody dressed in pink. And then, of course, Brendan Walsh's horse, Pretty Mischievous, won the Kentucky Oaks yesterday, became our 150th Kentucky Oaks winner. But today, our focus walking around here this morning is going to be on the Derby horses. We're probably going to make our way down to the track. They do have a little time frame for the Derby horses to work this morning. I don't know if all will participate or not. Like I said, this time of the year, they're fit. They don't need to do much. Maybe just stretch their legs a little this morning because the race is such later than what they're used to, not going off till about 7 o'clock. So we'll make our way down to the track. Please, if you have questions, send them along the way. And we're going to get started and head towards the racetrack. So, folks, 50 years ago today, I sneaked through a hole in the fence with my buddy Marty for 1973 Kentucky Derby. That was my first one. I missed a couple in between there, but this is going to be Derby number 44 for me today. And it just never gets old. It gets better every year. I'm getting goosebumps now as we're talking about it. So I hope you're all as excited as I am.
Sorry, we got an early question.
Okay.
We have, they asked, the Oaks has been around longer than the Derby?
No, it's actually, they both started in 1875. But the rules at one time were a little different. And so many horses wanted to compete in the Oaks in 1959. They ran what they call split divisions, 2 races of the same type. So there was actually 2 Kentucky Oaks winners that year. So even though it's 149 years, there has been 150 Derby winners. So that's the difference right there. And yesterday was a great day for the fillies. I hope some of you made it out here yesterday. Crowd was tremendous. Weather was tremendous. And we're hoping for the same thing later. Good day. But Brendan Walsh was the trainer who trained Pretty Mischievous that won yesterday. And Tyler Gaffalione, who's been kind of the perennial leading jockey here the last several years. Tyler rode the Derby winner. So big day for those connections right there. And a lot of big, I know Brad Cox, the trainer, I know he had at least one winner yesterday, I know. And of course, Brad today has 4 horses entered in the Kentucky Derby. So big day for him, big day for all of them, folks. When you walk around the backside on Derby morning, you can certainly feel the excitement. But these people that we see bathing the horses and everything, this is another day for them. I mean, they're going to party and have a good time too. But this is what they're doing every day, regardless of what's going on around them. And for them this time of year, there's so many people back here roaming around. Sometimes I feel like, we're invading their workspace. So we also have to realize they are working. They got a job to do. So we don't want to disturb them in any way. But coming up on Helen Pitts' barn. Helen's one of my favorites out here. Very nice lady. So a couple of the horses up on the barn there, you see Einstein. That's a horse that Helen trained. Tremendous animal he was. He was a grade 1 winner on all 3 surfaces. I better keep moving. That exercise rider will come over and try to hijack my tour here. when I do these tours in the morning, folks, I usually ride around on a golf cart, and he always will try to steal my golf cart when I'm not in it. So I've got to be careful there.
Is the general public allowed to come on the backside?
General public, no, you actually have to have some credentials. But if you ever wanted to come to do this, check out the Kentucky Derby Museum's website. Hopefully what we're getting to see this morning gives you an idea what you might want to come and see live someday. So you can certainly get back here, but that's the only, but today people that are back here have to have some kind of horseman's credentials to be back here. Ron Moquett. Ron Moquett's got a horse in today's Kentucky Derby, King Russell. He'll be number 23 in the Derby this year. Folks, when we come around the corner, we're going to be walking up on an equine spa. I'm not sure if there's any horses in there at the moment. It doesn't look like there's any in there right now. But an equine spa, it's a tank, and they basically will fill it about a quarter of the way with 35-degree water, Epsom salts, and things like that. If a horse has any kind of inflammation down his leg, stands in there, helps him out, just like other athletes go into the whirlpool after their workouts. No different here, folks. And you have to realize these are equine athletes. Here we are around Moquest Barn. Got a couple of horses over there getting their morning baths. Always cool, especially folks who ever get back here on cool mornings. And these horses have worked out. They start bathing them, and you're seeing the steam rising off of them. It's just very, very cool. So I mentioned yesterday to anybody watching, I've been coming to this racetrack for most of my life. But many times I was just over on the other side as a fan, and I'm still a fan. But getting to come back here and see what goes on behind the scenes is just really cool. There's so much more that goes into it. Just, they say it takes a village. Well, that's what we're in right now, folks. We are in a village. Roughly about 1,400 horses back here and about 700 people living back caring for these animals. So whenever I bring people back here on tours, they'll say, well, it's like a little city. And it certainly is. Restaurants, dormitories, basically a school teaching English, computer skills, a church. We got a little bit of everything back here. So it is their little village for sure. Now, right now, folks, the training hours are a little different this morning because we start the races so much earlier than normal. So they're on a break now where they'll be reworking the racetrack. We hope to get up there and find out what Derby horses will be coming on the track this morning, if any. All trainers have different ways of doing the same thing. So you got to know your animal and what they want to do. Some of these horses, they're not going to be racing until 7 o'clock tonight, basically, for the Derby. That's a long day. So some of them might get out and do a little more exercising this morning than they might on a normal race day because it is such a late race this afternoon.
Barry, we have a quick question. What is your favorite racetrack?
Well, this is my favorite racetrack. There's no doubt about that. My heart is here. I love this place. But as a fan, when I go to a couple places, obviously Keeneland and our way, I kind of always describe that as kind of the Augusta National of racetracks. Very pristine, just totally different than what you're seeing around here. And then Saratoga is where I have my flights booked to head up there in a couple of months already. So Saratoga, tremendous racing up there, and it's such an old track with an old feel. So those be 1, 2, and 3 for me. And we see Mr. Man, the goat, outside of Brad Cox's barn. Some barns use goats, chickens, different things like that as the companions. And there's old Mr. Man over there, and he doesn't miss many meals, as you can see. He does not miss too many meals.
I'm going to join in really quickly because yesterday he was sleeping in the stall with wet paint when we went by.
Oh, was he really? Okay.
He has a buddy.
He's a big fella. Yeah, Mr. Man. Yeah, he's going to try to eat all the flowers there. So, but horses, as mentioned, are herd animals. They like company and packs and things like that. So they like having some other animals around them. And he's kind of the star of the barn here, right there. Yeah. He's going to get into everything. But that's Mr. Man right there, folks. Neat looking fella. Maybe we'll branch off to some goat racing one of these days. Yeah. Yeah. He didn't care for you getting that close to him there. So big day for the Brad Cox barn. Big day for them.
Are you guys meeting to talk to Brad?
No, ma'am. Yeah, Brad, I'm not sure. I didn't see Brad in there, and I'm sure he is. That's a busy man. Busy man. All right. Lovely morning back here, folks. A lot of mornings you come back here. This is much cooler than probably any place in town, it seems like to me. But the weather is perfect today. Hopefully warm up. And then we're looking at the big board there, folks. Barley out the bars. Just that sound, that clip clop, folks. That just one of the greatest sounds in the world, right there to me. Let's look this way. And we're going to make our way up towards the racetrack, folks. As I mentioned, it's a renovation break right now, reworking the track. But hopefully we'll get to see some of these Derby horses coming out. Get one last glimpse at them. There's many people that don't want to make a bet on a horse till they've actually seen it in the flesh. Me personally, it doesn't help me much. They all look beautiful to me. I can't tell one from another too often. So, my picks go by reading a daily racing form or Brisnet, one of those things, and just that's how I choose it. But there are so many people. I work with a young girl, boy, her eye for a horse is tremendous. And so some people have that ability. That is not part of my ability. And we're looking at the Jumbotron, folks, the big board. Yeah, so 50 years ago, I sneaked through a hole in the fence. And I made my way around to the tunnel and got out in the infield for my first Kentucky Derby. And the infield opened up my eyes at that time, folks, when I got out there. I always describe it kind of as Woodstock, Mardi Gras, and spring break all rolled into one. And I had a good time out there that day, but after several hours, I realized I hadn't seen a horse all day. So walked a couple blocks away to my sister's house and watched Secretariat win that year. So that was 50 years ago today. Hard to believe. But I have been attending races at this racetrack basically for about 62 years. So when you asked me my favorite racetrack earlier, nothing will ever compete with this place for me. All right. Welcome by the Greg Foley barn. I don't think they have anything entered in today, but they had a winner a couple days ago. Now we're walking by the Backside Learning Center here over on our left, folks. Own nonprofit organization. They're here to help out these folks. Marvin rides for Billy Mott. So it's break time for these folks right now. I don't know if there's a little red light over there. We see the red light says track's closed. That means nobody else can bring a horse out right now. When the last ones get off, then the water trucks and tractors will go around and regroom the racetrack, and then we'll be ready for the Derby horses to come out here in the next several minutes. But just looking across at the spires right now, folks, they've been there since 1895. For me, it's hard not to get a little emotional when I look over at those things. They represent the whole Commonwealth of Kentucky, folks, not just Churchill Downs. Anywhere in the world, they see those iconic twin spires, they're going to think of Churchill Downs. So it's just neat that this is such a worldwide event. I know everybody where they come from has something in their hometown they're proud of. For us, this is it. This is, at least for me, I get goosebumps just talking about this stuff every day. So.
We have another question for
Okay,
you.
all right.
What is your favorite Kentucky Derby win?
Well, my favorite Derby was 1996. Morning, Greg. 1996 when I was here with my Uncle Joe, and that was his 75th Derby in a row. That's always going to be a special one for me. As far as wins, a few years ago, some buddies and I, we all put up a little bit of money, I think $12 a piece, and we hit the trifecta that year and got back $1,200 a piece. So that was an enjoyable day. So my favorite Derby winner of all time is Northern Dancer. That is my last name, and I was 7 years old when he won the Derby, and I used to keep scrapbooks on him and different things like that. So it's all Jenny Reese, the Hall of Fame writer, just a little while ago. I know Jenny has always said there's no such thing as a bad Derby. Some are just better than others. So that's the way I feel about it. So, but the one here with my Uncle Joe for 75 in a row, that's pretty special. Most of us don't get to do anything we love for that many years in a row, but for 75 straight years, he was here attending the Kentucky Derby. So that's kind of my family's background, which has got me into this and loving it as well. We're making our way up towards basically what's considered the media center on the backside this time of year, folks. All the TV and radio stations doing their morning shows out here. But this will be a good spot for us to hopefully get up here rail side when those Derby horses start coming back out.
I have another question for you.
Oh.
Becca asked, do Derby contenders get special barns during Derby?
Very good question. Do the Derby contenders get special barns? Not necessarily. Way back in the corner, born 42, many years ago, that was considered the Derby barn. But that's when you had probably more horses shipping in for the Derby. These days, our horses here are so good that we got a lot of horses that are typically stabled here that are in the Derby this year. And they would normally just be in whatever barn they're normally in. So really nothing special these days. Like Dale Romans, we passed his barn a little while ago. He has Cyclone Mischief in today. Cyclone Mischief's in his same normal barn that he always would be. Now, when they come onto the track for the Derby, you never know where their barn is, but they'll come onto the track through one of these gaps, an opening onto the track. There's 4 of those. And then the horses for the Derby will gather down there just by the chute, and then they make a big procession over to the other side. Folks doing this last year, the Churchill Downs folks surprised me. I was wrapping up my tour, and I was looking at those twin spires and talking about friends and family that love the Derby that aren't with me anymore and getting a little emotional. And then one of the young ladies from Churchill Downs asked me if there was anything that I would like to do on Derby that I hadn't done before. Well, I mentioned that when those horses gather for the Derby and they start making that walk over, to me, that's one of the coolest things. And they shocked me at the end of my tour and asked me if they said, well, what if we told you you're going to get to do that today? And it definitely caught me off guard, but it certainly was for fun, folks. When I made that walk over, it kind of was the analogy to me as a prize fighter when they're going into the ring and you see everybody. Well, it was 20 prize fighters basically walking over there last year. When you walk over there and 170,000 people are screaming and yelling at those horses, I have goosebumps right now, no doubt about it. And the thing that always amazed me, or did amaze me last year, was how calm those horses stayed with everything going on around them. And these are still very young horses. And most of the times they're out here in the mornings when not many people are around. Or some of our race days aren't huge crowds. So you never know how they're going to react when they see all this stuff on Derby Day. But it was amazing to me how calm those animals stayed over there on the walk. But I'll go back to a friend of mine, Bill Vest, who works back here. Bill's always told me, typically those horses in the Derby, they're not just gifted athletically, but they're probably gifted mentally too. So most of them are a little better at handling the big crowds and stuff than maybe some of your normal horses. So that walk over last year, and then going underneath that twin spires back to the paddock to watch the saddling, and then they allowed me to watch last year's race standing out on the turf course, folks. That brings me back to a story. Several years ago, Pat Day, all-time winningest jockey here at Churchill Downs, he told me when he would talk to other riders who had never ridden in the Derby before, his advice for them was to be ready for the wall. And he says, when you hit the top of that stretch for that final quarter, you better be ready for the wall of noise. Well, standing where I was last year, basically in front of the winner's circle on the turf course, facing that crowd, I know what he means now. When they hit the top of that stretch and that crowd erupted, I felt that wall of noise myself. So now I know what Pat's talking about. So that was a very special one for me last year, folks. So hope you don't mind me reminiscing about that a little bit, but that was a very special time for me last year. So, like I said, Derby Day, I don't care where I am. Infield, back here yesterday, back here, people, come to Horsemen, get families back here, and they're tailgating and everything back here. So I like it back here. I like it on the other side. I used to love it in the infield, just too old for that anymore. But I don't care where I am on Derby Day on the property. Just get me here somewhere. I don't care where. I just want to be here. The excitement's palpable, folks. When those gates open at 9 o'clock in the morning, you certainly feel the excitement already. But as each race goes by, and it just starts building, and then when they hit that track and make that walk over the crescendo there, boy, just Never gets old for me. But we have 14 races today. Derby's the 12th of 14 of them. People always ask me why that. Well, I'm guessing the idea behind it is to, if the Derby's the last race, then you got a couple 100,000 people leaving at the same time. If you run a couple races after the Derby, some will might hang around. They're all trying to recoup what they've lost at that point. They got a couple races trying to get some of their money back. So that's the idea is why we run 14 races. And then the crowd can kind of filter out instead of everybody heading at the same time. Well, we're going to cross a gap here, folks, and guess we're going to try to make our way up to rail side here. We have tractors out there. See them going around one more time. I don't know. It depends on weather forecast, folks. A lot of times how much water they'll put on that track today. If they're expecting rain, they probably won't have to put much water on it, but we'll see. I'm not sure what the forecast is today, but as the late, great John Asher said, on Derby Day, it's always 75 and sunny. And I feel that same way. And we'll probably stand here for a minute, I would think, because some of those Derby horses could be coming up this way. The Todd Pletcher contingent, he has the favorites today. We have Todd has Forte, but I think I just glanced at some of the early wagering already. It looks like his stablemate Tapatrice is taking a lot of action too. So looks like those two could be pretty close to co-favorites come race time. Because Tapatrice, every year there's some horse on the back here that gets a little bit of a buzz. You know, everybody says, boy, he looks good and this kind of thing. And for me this year, it seems like Tapatrice is the one a lot of people have gravitated to just on the way he's been working out here in the morning. His previous races have obviously been good, but he's looked especially good out here in the morning. So it looks like Tapatrice and Forte should be pretty close to co-favorites. I wouldn't be surprised come Derby time.
We've got to ask, who's your pick?
Well, my pick is Rocket Can, trained by Bill Mott. I bet him in Churchill Downs. TwinSpires.com offers future bets on the Derby every year. Several different times a year, you can bet horses that you think might make it to the Derby. That's a future bet. So you can pick a horse, and they might not even make it to the race. There's no guarantee there. But Rocket Can is one I took, and if I'm not mistaken, I think this morning his odds were 32 to 1, I think. So he's a bit of a long shot. But when I bet him, I locked his odds in at 30. So he's certainly my pick this year. But I'd also Tapatrice. If I didn't have the future bet on Rocket Can and wasn't pulling for that reason, Tapatrice would probably be who I would be picking right now. But I'll also say this, my last Derby winner was 2011, Animal Kingdom. So it's been a while. So don't listen to me. Pick your own horse, names, numbers, colors, whatever you want to do. Just jump in and get a little action on the day race. We have plenty of time. This race won't be going off till close to 7 o'clock this evening. So that's what I always say. It's an all-day party, folks. These people get here early. We're going to run. They come in at 9 o'clock. That race isn't going to be run until about 7. So it becomes a very festive atmosphere at that time of the day. But you really do feel the excitement build as the day goes on. And then when those Derby horses start making their way over, boy, that's a special time for me.
Who was your Oaks pick this year?
My Oaks picks didn't go well. I bet on Botanical. It was her first time running on a dirt track, and she didn't perform up to what they expected, I don't think. So I would imagine she'll go back to probably being a grass horse or maybe synthetic, that type of thing. At least that's my opinion. I haven't talked to anybody from the Cox barn to find out about that. But she did have so much success on grass before. But you always want to take your shot in the Derby and the Oaks. So sometimes a horse might be taken off their preferred surface just to take the shot at winning the Kentucky Derby or the Kentucky Oaks. So, yeah, my pick Botanical yesterday didn't run so well.
You're hoping for a redemption in the
Oh,
Derby.
exactly. We got 14 more races today to get some of that money back. So yeah. So and if Rocket Can gets there, I'll be in good shape. And I really don't have to bet any more on him because I bet my $10 on him back in November, and that $10 would give me a chance to get me back about, I guess, what would that be? 132 to 1. So, yeah, $1,320. So,
will you explain the future wagers a little bit?
well, the future wager, Churchill Downs will offer a pool typically of about 24 horses at a certain times of the year. And you can bet on them. But as I mentioned earlier, you might bet on one. There's no guarantee they're going to make it to the Derby. So it's a lot of people call it a sucker bet. But for me, it's a fun bet to pick a horse early in the year like that and then follow him and hope he makes it to the starting gate on Kentucky Derby Day. And I actually have 3 of them this year that I made future bets on in the past. Hit Show as well is one I have, and King's Barnes is another one. So all 3 of them. And Kings Barnes lightly raced, folks. He didn't race as a 2-year-old. If you remember a few years ago, Justify won the Triple Crown, and he didn't race until he was a 3-year-old. Well, they call that the curse of Apollo, because back was 1882, I guess Apollo won the Kentucky Derby without racing as a 2-year-old. Well, that didn't happen again until Justify in 2018. So a lot of people think that the horses need a little foundation, basically a little experience as a 2-year-old before they get into these big races as a 3-year-old. But King Barnes did not do that, but he was a horse that was purchased at auction as a year old only for about 800,000. So they obviously expected big things from him. He was maybe a little late coming around. All these horses mature at different ages, folks, just like children. Uh, and between that 2-year-old and that 3-year-old, a lot of things can change. So maybe some of these 2-year-olds weren't as precocious as Forte, who's our favorite today and was the 2-year-old champion. But maybe some of them have matured and maybe to Forte. So that's the hope. They're trying to beat Forte as the favorite. So hoping that maybe some of these horses have matured and really and maybe now they've caught up to him or passed him. We'll find out later on today. Uh, but he certainly is going to be a formidable favorite out there. He looked very good in the mornings as well. I don't think there's any chinks. Doesn't look like there's any chinks in his armor to me. But I'm going for big money. I'm going to try to beat him. So that's my whole idea. All right. Yeah, here come our Derby horses getting ready to come by, folks. We'll stand here and watch them walk by us, and then we'll head real side. And this is the Todd Pletcher contingent. It looks like coming along here. So that's his 3 horses are Forte, Tapitrice, and King's Barnes. I can't tell. It looks like this is Forte coming here. I think I can't see the saddle top. But that looks like who we got. And with all the gaggle of reporters behind him, I'd say this probably is our Derby favorite coming along here. Yeah, he will be ridden today by Irad Ortiz. That is not Irad there. That's one of Todd Pletcher's exercise riders who will be riding him this morning. Yep, there's Forte. Gorgeous animal. So at this time of the day for these trainers, folks, they're just kind of on pins and needles. They've done everything they can to this point. They've got their horses in the best shape of their lives at this point, hopefully. And so now it's just be on pins and needles, hope that everything, knock on wood, everything goes according to plan today. And we'll see this guy step foot into that starting gate a little before 7 o'clock tonight. And then right at about 2 minutes later, we'll find out who the winner is. And mentioning 2 minutes, folks, we call this the greatest 2 minutes in sports. But 50 years ago today, Secretariat ran it at 1:59 and 2/5, and that record still holds 50 years later. So I hope they run fast times today, but I don't want them seeing big Secretariat's record today. We want to think that hold through 50 years. It's just hard to believe to me that it's been 50 years already since he won. Forte standing there nice and relaxed. You see the feet wrapped up. It's just all for precaution, folks. These guys can kind of figure out ways to hurt themselves a little bit. And Sometimes they can overreach and grab themselves, like somebody stepping on the back of your tennis shoe. They can kind of do that themselves sometimes. So down there in those lower extremities, if you get a little cut, abrasion, something like that, doesn't heal very fast because not a lot of blood flow down there. So those are all just precautionary measures. So Forte's standing here. Obviously, our tractors are still on the track. Uh, Once they get off, then they'll say the track's open for Derby horses only. And hopefully we'll get to see him. Todd has 3. Forte's the only one here I see right now. I don't know if he's going to bring the other 2 to the track today or not. Each horse is an individual, folks. So what works for one might not necessarily work for the other. So you've got to treat them as each one is an individual. You can't treat them all the same. But Todd now has run more horses in the Kentucky Derby than any trainer in history. He has 2 wins under his belt. Super Saver and Always Dreaming, I guess, was his other one. Yeah, he's drawing a blank there for a minute. Look how calm and relaxed he is there, folks. That's a good sign. He's taking it all in, but he's not too nervous. He's just ready to get out there and stretch his legs a little bit here in a minute. When I do tours back here, folks, the one thing you're always going to hear is how gorgeous these animals are.
We have another question. Was Secretariat the favorite to win when he ran?
He was the favorite to win. I believe his odds were 3-2 that day. That means for every $2 you bet, you win 3. So a $2 wager on him got you $5. So he was the favorite. Probably not as heavy a favorite as you might have thought, because his previous race prior to the Derby, the Wood Memorial, he did not win that race. But most people thought that might have been a fluke, so he still was sent off the favorite on Derby Day at odds of 3-2. I'm hoping for more than 3-2 odds today. All right, stepping up to the racetrack here, folks. All right. We're right up here, railside track. Looks like it's in excellent condition. But if you can see where we're standing right now, folks, this is it's gotten dry in this area and it gets loose. So the horses don't get the traction that they might want. That's when you look out here at our track where they're going to be here in a minute, there's moisture in there. That gives them a little bit of bounce, a little bit of cushion. So we still see a little red light on over here, which means the track is still closed. But I see our outriders, the best in the business, the lifeguards coming onto the track right now. That means the track is open. And it'll be interesting to see how many Derby horses come out here this morning. Whether they're all going to come out or not, we don't know. But obviously our Derby favorite is going to be coming out. And here he comes entering the track right now, folks. There he is. There's Forte. I think the odds I saw on the early betting this morning, I thought he and Tapit Trice I thought I saw them as co-5-1 favorites, if I'm not mistaken. Because you could start betting on this race yesterday, folks. So a lot of people did make their bets yesterday. After a few hours today, when you see the odds on those horses, probably won't change too much after that. Because so much money is betted into the pool, it takes an awful lot of money to change the odds on a horse one way or the other. So probably after first couple races today, we should have a pretty good idea what those odds will be come race time. Who we got coming here? We had a new gray added, so this King Russell, this is Moran Moquet's coming here. He's a son of Creative Cause, I believe, and that's probably where that gray is coming in there with his daddy, Creative Cause. Here comes our outrider, Lee Lockwood. Good morning, Lee. How are you, buddy? And there's King Russell. I think we have 4 grays in the race now today. Folks, I know a lot of people like to bet the grays. My mother's adage was bet a gray on a rainy day. But I don't think we're going to get the rain today, which would be nice. across the way on our turf course, folks, you see our grounds crew out there. We had races run on the grass yesterday. We will have them today as well. So they're just doing a little maintenance, walking around, checking for divots, different things like that. Here comes my Derby horse here, Rocket Can, folks. This is him coming, being led by assistant trainer Kenny McCarthy. Gelser is the exercise rider up on his back this morning. And then trailing him on his pony is Mr. Bill Mott. So Bill is the head trainer. Kenny's his assistant who oversees his Kentucky division. Bill's typically in New York a lot of the year. But Rocket Can, he's made a favorable impression out here every morning. He's got a pretty stride, covers a lot of ground. Now, as far as his running style today, I believe he's with the scratches that we've had, folks. They've kind of changed the post positions a little bit. I believe Rocket Can is going to slide into post position number 17 now, and the reason I bring that up is because I believe that is the only post position. We've never had a Derby winner coming out of post 17 before. We have had number 17 horse win, but in that particular year, he was slid into the 16 spot because of the late scratch. So, and I think that's what same thing happened to Rocket Can. So, law of averages are on my side. 17 is going to win one of these days. For 148. There's Confidence Game going by. And there's Forte. The Confidence Game who just went by is one of the horses who has a win over this racetrack. That's always meaningful to me. Rocket Can has a win here. Confidence Game has a couple of wins here, actually, and two fills is another one. So there's three of them who have a race over the track. That never hurts for that. Folks, I'm looking over at the newest section, the First Turn Suites. Boy, it was packed in there yesterday. Hearing nothing but favorable reports about the people that have watched from over in that particular area. Talked to some people yesterday that were there on Thursday and some that were there yesterday. So new addition, which has added about 7,000 more seats, and looks like a very nice addition to Churchill Downs racetrack. All right, here comes Rocket Can. So he's on our side now. We'll get a little better look at him coming by here. At this point, just nothing but stretching those legs a little bit. He looks good to me. I think he'll look better with a blanket of roses over his neck this afternoon. And Bill Mott is a Hall of Fame trainer, folks, and he has a Derby win. But his one Derby win was a few years ago with Country House, and Maximum Security had crossed the wire first. But for impeding some other horses, he was disqualified, and Bill Mott moved up and took that spot. I'm sure he enjoyed that win, but I think he'd like to win one of the more legitimate fashion, crossing that wire first. So we'll see today. So our outriders are down here to our right. We have three of them out there this morning, folks. Policemen / lifeguards, just trying to make everything safe as possible out there. And all three of our guys, Oklahoma Cowboys. And those horses they are on, worth their weight in gold to them. Those are some very well-trained animals. All right, who we got here? Forte coming around another time. He's pretty much got the track to himself out there this morning right now. So it looks like several of the Derby trainers have chosen not to bring their horses out this morning. Like I said, each trainer does the same thing, just has different ideas on how to do it. But more than anything, it's knowing your animal because they're all individuals. I see some people up on top in the mansion up there right now on the other side. For anybody local, or even if you're ever going to visit Churchill Downs, that top left-hand section over there, folks, is a steakhouse, the Matt Wynn Steakhouse. Very nice place. It's pretty cool to eat your meal up there in the evenings overlooking historic Churchill Downs racetrack. So, and that's a year round, pretty much, I believe, 5 days a week that they're open up there in that steakhouse. But it's going to look a little different this afternoon when we're lit up with about 170,000 people. I'm saying 170, folks. That's our record crowd. We might not hit that this year, uh, but I certainly feel like when we get to Derby 150 next year that we will probably set a record.
You had a question about your pin on your jacket earlier.
Oh,
Can you tell
okay.
us a little bit about
Well,
your pin?
my pen, it's a microphone with the initials JA stand on there, and that stands for the late great John Asher, folks. John Asher worked here at Churchill Downs for many years. Probably the best ambassador for this racetrack that we've ever had. And John passed away a few years ago. When I got to make that walkover last year, uh, Churchill Downs media folks, Darren Rogers, told me you need a John Asher pin if you're going to make that walkover there. So, uh, John just lived and breathed everything Kentucky Derby and was such a great ambassador for horse racing in general, but the Kentucky Derby and Churchill Downs in particular. So that's why I'm wearing this pin today. And I miss John Asher. He was a very good reference for me. You know, I'm supposed to know the history of Churchill Downs, and if it comes up with something I didn't know, I could always go to John, and he'd have the answer. All right, here comes my rocket can again. Pretty white face on that dude there. Pretty white face. Got him to switch his leads right there from his left to his right. What that is, folks, when they come around a bend, they're always taking left-hand turns. But they're coming around these bends, and you want that horse reaching with his left. Uh, and then when they get to a straightaway, to keep him from bearing in, they'll want to switch back to his right lead. So they don't all do it like they're supposed to. In my opinion, that's probably what happened the year Maximum Security was disqualified. He was making that final turn, and he probably got spooked by the crowd, would be my guess. And he jumped to his right lead a little early, and that kept him from cornering very well. So, and that drifted him out into the path some others and impeded them, and that's what got him disqualified. And I always like to bring that up, folks, because when I hear people on my tours talking about, they'll say, well, they didn't want him to win. He was a favorite. Churchill Downs would have had to pay out more money. Well, that's completely false, folks. Once you make your bets, there's a pool of money. Churchill Downs takes a cut for putting on the show, but then the rest is spread among the gamblers. So the same amount of money paid out that day, it just paid out to fewer people when they gave it to a long shot. So that's a misconception people have. That way they're taking their cut for putting on the show. They don't care who wins the race. It does not matter to them. So, and speaking of betting, folks, when you come here at Churchill Downs, if you're coming to the Derby today, I'm going to give a plug to twinspires.com. The lines can be so long over there for betting and things like that, and it is all cash betting. If you're some person that wants to bet quite a bit of money, you got to carry a lot of cash with you. If you bet on twinspires.com, you don't have to do that. You can advance deposit wagering. It's called an ADW. Put your money in that account. Then you bet on your phone. It'll make for a much more enjoyable day having to stand in all those lines and things like that. So you might be comfortable in your seat. You don't want to give up. Bet on your phone. So that's my tip. I think it makes for a much more enjoyable day when you don't have to stand in those long lines. The only thing there is some people like to have a souvenir ticket. And betting on Twinspires, you would not have that. But all right, so it looks like we've only had Rocket Can, Confidence Game. He's out there right now, Lee. He's coming this way. Lee just asked me who my horse was. And, he's coming this way. I think they all want to know who my pick is so they can scratch that one off, Yeah, so I told him Rocket Can. Lee knows my track record for picking Derby winners, so he'll draw a line right through that one. All right, so it looks like they're all off right now, folks. Now these folks got to rest up a little bit. We're gonna, we got racing here coming up in just a couple of hours. So, folks, I hope you enjoyed this. if you ever want to come back and see this thing firsthand, just think. Somebody asked earlier, come to public, do that, and go through Kentucky Derby or Churchill Downs. I'm sorry, Derby Museum website. I'm sorry, and go on there and see the tours that we offer. My suggestion, if you're ever going to do tours back here, the early morning ones when the horses are all out and about, like we see, to me those are the best times of day. So I'm looking over at those Twin Spires once again, folks. 44 for me, but 50 years ago was my first one. Oh, coming through a hole in the fence over there. I'll never forget it. And that started I've had a love affair with the Derby all my life, but attending my first one really jump started it even more. So uh, we appreciate you joining us this morning. Uh, Once again, I'm going to sign off by saying have a great Derby day and have a hunch and bet a bunch. So thanks, everybody. This is Barry Northern signing out. Have a great Derby day.